They thought they could break you and walk away untouched. They believed that betrayal had no echo, that cruelty disappears once the victim goes silent. But what they never understood is that silence is where justice begins. Because life keeps a perfect record, not on paper, not in heaven, but in the conscience. Every lie, every manipulation, every calculated act of harm leaves an invisible mark on the soul. And when enough of those marks pile up, they become heavy, heavier than guilt, heavier than fear, heavy enough to collapse an entire life. That's what's happening now. The ones who thought they'd hurt you and walk away free are now haunted by their own actions. Their laughter feels hollow. Their victories taste bitter. And at night, when the world goes quiet, the noise inside them begins. Because guilt doesn't need witnesses, it only needs silence to speak. Meanwhile, you've changed. The pain that once crushed you has become your discipline. You've rebuilt yourself, not with vengeance, but with emotional intelligence, with psychological boundaries, with an inner peace they can't fake. You stopped chasing fairness, and that's when life started balancing itself. This isn't revenge. This is correction. It's the Stoic law of cause and effect. What you send out, you eventually live with. And those who choose to destroy goodness end up destroyed by their own corruption. They thought they could hurt you. Now they're paying the price, not because you cursed them, but because truth always collects its debt. Quietly, precisely, inevitably. There's always that moment, subtle, quiet, when someone makes the decision to hurt you. It doesn't happen by accident. It's calculated, deliberate, born from envy or ego. They study your kindness, test your patience, and when they sense your empathy, they mistake it for weakness. That's where their downfall begins, not when they betray you, but when they misjudge you. You see, people who harm others think in the short term. They seek control, validation, dominance, illusions of power that feed their insecurity. They convince themselves they're superior because they can manipulate, lie, or walk away without remorse. But this illusion only blinds them further from reality, because the moment they choose cruelty, they've already stepped out of alignment with truth. What they don't understand is that truth always waits. It doesn't need to rush. It doesn't need to scream. It simply observes, quietly recording every action. When they chose to betray you, they didn't just break your trust. They fractured their own integrity. And integrity, once cracked, never holds weight for long. It starts small, a whisper in the back of their mind. You shouldn't have done that. But they push it away, distract themselves with new people, noise, attention, validation. Yet beneath it all, the echo remains. They thought you were fragile. They thought your silence was surrender. But the Stoics knew better. They knew that silence is not weakness. It's awareness. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And in that moment, when they chose to hurt you, they chained themselves to the very energy they tried to use against you. Their world may not collapse immediately. Life doesn't punish impulsively. It's patient. precise. But the erosion begins subtly, invisibly. Their relationships start to lose warmth. The people around them begin to sense the falseness behind their smile. The trust they once commanded begins to fade. That's not coincidence. That's moral cause and effect unfolding. Because when you violate the balance that sustains peace, you invite disorder into your own life. What makes this so tragic is that they often believe they've escaped consequence. They mistake delay for freedom. But in reality, the clock has already started ticking. The guilt they suppress becomes anxiety. The lies they told become paranoia. The masks they wear grow heavier every day. It's not external punishment, it's internal corrosion. Their soul becomes a battlefield where truth and denial fight endlessly. And while that happens, you're changing. At first, it feels unfair. How could they hurt you and move on while you're left picking up the pieces? But that's the illusion, because what looks like their freedom is just the first stage of their collapse. You, on the other hand, are being refined. Pain has a strange way of building strength where it once broke you. Every tear, every sleepless night, every silent prayer, they all forged resilience. You're no longer the person they once toyed with. They played a short game. You're playing the infinite one. They chose ego, you chose growth. And in that simple choice, the balance of power shifted. So remember this, their betrayal wasn't the end of your story, it was the beginning of their reckoning. Because when someone chooses to harm a pure heart, they don't just lose that person, they lose peace itself. And no victory can replace that. There's a law woven into the fabric of existence, invisible, unbreakable, and absolute. It doesn't belong to religion or superstition. It belongs to reality itself. The Stoics called it logos, the rational order of the universe. Modern psychology calls it cause and effect. Whatever name you choose, it always works the same way. Every action creates an echo, and every echo returns to the source. That's the hidden law of balance. When someone chooses to harm you, to lie, to betray, they're not just hurting another person, they're disturbing that balance. They believe they're walking away clean. But what they don't see is that they've just thrown a stone into the still water of their own soul. The ripples will return. They always do. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." When a person acts from ego, pride, or cruelty, they lose mastery. They become enslaved to the consequences of their own actions. Their arrogance blinds them to this truth. But the universe doesn't forget. Balance doesn't shout. It simply waits. Look closely at the people who thought they could hurt you and move on. On the surface, they seem fine, smiling, succeeding, pretending they're untouchable. But that's the illusion of imbalance. You can't violate truth and remain whole. You can't destroy trust and still expect peace. You can't betray love and still feel worthy of it. Sooner or later, the moral gravity of their choices pulls them down. At first, it's subtle. A restless night, a lost friendship, a sense of emptiness they can't explain. Then it grows. Their confidence begins to crack. Their relationships lose authenticity. They begin to sense the cold distance between who they pretend to be and who they truly are. That's balance correcting itself. It's not punishment, it's restoration. Life doesn't seek revenge, it seeks equilibrium. And equilibrium demands truth. Every betrayal poisons the one who commits it. Every lie weakens the liar. Every cruelty fragments the self. Because guilt is not an external judgment, it's an internal malfunction. The more they suppress it, the more it controls them. They try to fill the void with attention, with possessions, with people. But the void only deepens. Meanwhile, the same law that humbles them strengthens you, while their lies corrode their peace. Your integrity rebuilds yours. While they're haunted by deceit, you're guided by discipline. While they're trapped in guilt, you're growing through resilience. That's the paradox of the Stoic life. You win, not by striking back, but by staying in harmony with the truth. The moment you stopped chasing revenge, you aligned with balance itself. And when you align with balance, the universe starts to move on your side quietly, consistently, powerfully. So don't waste your time waiting for their collapse. You don't need to watch them fall to know that justice is already in motion. Every sleepless night they endure, every false smile they wear, every hollow victory they chase, it's all part of the correction. Life is not unfair. It's precise. You simply have to trust that the hidden law is working because it always is. Power built on deception is not power, it's theater. And, like all performances, it ends the moment the mask slips. When they hurt you, they believed they were powerful. They believed control over your emotions meant dominance. That silence from you meant defeat. But what they never understood is that real strength doesn't need to dominate it, only needs to remain unmoved. Their power was never real. It was borrowed, fragile, dependent on your reaction to exist. False power thrives on illusion. It feeds on your confusion, your pain, your attempts to explain. The manipulator needs you to respond, because without your energy, their control collapses. Every insult, every betrayal, every silent test was meant to provoke, to keep you orbiting around their chaos. The moment you stopped reacting, the illusion cracked. They thought they were in control, but the Stoics teach that the only true control is self-control. Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus has power over my will." They could wound your feelings, but they could never touch your inner discipline. They mistook emotional detachment for weakness, not realizing it's the highest form of mastery. People intoxicated by ego see kindness as vulnerability, honesty as naivety, and calm as submission. But that's because they live disconnected from themselves. They crave dominance to feel alive. They lie to feel clever. They betray to feel superior. Every act of harm becomes their proof that they matter. Yet that's the core of their downfall. Power that depends on destruction always self-destructs. Watch closely. The same arrogance that made them proud is now isolating them. The same manipulation that once worked now leaves them empty. The same false confidence they flaunted now eats away at their peace. Because when you build power by breaking others, you build a life that breaks you. Their control was a performance for the world, loud, convincing, but hollow. And now, behind closed doors, they faced the truth. Their strength was only fear disguised as dominance. They were never strong, they were terrified of being ordinary. That's why they needed to step on others to silence the insecurity screaming inside them. But the universe has a quiet way of teaching truth. The illusion fades. Their charm stops working. Their lies stop convincing. Their audience disappears. And when the applause ends, what remains is emptiness, because nothing built on deceit can hold its shape forever. Meanwhile, you've discovered what real power feels like. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't need validation or control. Real power is silent alignment, when your actions, values, and emotions move in harmony. It's when you walk away without anger, when you choose peace over reaction, when you protect your dignity even in the face of disrespect. That's the kind of power they'll never understand, because it can't be taken, it can only be earned. So, while they crumble under the weight of their own lies, you're rising from truth. Their illusion is collapsing. Your calm is conquering. And in the end, that's the irony of false power. It burns fast, but your quiet endurance burns forever. Guilt is the most silent form of justice, invisible, inescapable, and merciless. It doesn't come from outside, it grows within. And when it begins to rise, no power, nor money, nor distraction can silence it. They thought walking away meant freedom. They thought erasing you, lying about you, pretending you never mattered would reset their life. But the truth is, you can run from people, not from conscience. You can fake smiles, not peace. You can perform confidence, but not integrity. At first, guilt is quiet, just a faint discomfort, a flicker of unease when the world goes still. But the mind never forgets what the heart refuses to face. Over time, those small whispers turn into a storm. Every silence feels heavier. Every mirror becomes a reminder. Every night feels longer. And that's when the punishment begins, not from life, but from within their own soul. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The one who betrayed you lost that mastery the moment they chose deceit. Because guilt is not just an emotion, it's the collapse of self-control. The liar becomes haunted by his own words. The manipulator becomes trapped in the web they wove for others. You may not see it happening, but inside them, peace is dying. They try to drown the guilt with noise, new lovers, new adventures, new distractions, but silence always finds them. Guilt waits. It waits for quiet. It waits for loneliness. It waits for the exact moment when all their masks fall away, and there's nothing left to hide behind. Then it speaks. Not loudly, but persistently. You knew what you were doing. You hurt someone who meant you no harm. You became the very thing you once despised. That's the voice they hear when the world goes still. And that's a voice they can't argue with. Because guilt doesn't negotiate, it exposes. Over time, guilt changes them. It eats away at the foundation of their identity. They begin to distrust love because they've broken it before. They can't accept kindness because they know they don't deserve it. They question every compliment, every connection, every moment of peace, because deep down, they know it's borrowed. It's not real. Psychologists call this moral dissonance, the conflict between how we want to see ourselves and what we've actually done. The Stoics called it self-betrayal. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When those thoughts are tainted with guilt, the soul turns against itself. They might laugh louder, post happier, or brag harder, but the laughter becomes forced, the happiness staged, the confidence hollow. That's what guilt does. It drains authenticity and replaces it with performance. They begin to act more than they live. And here's the paradox. The more they try to deny it, the deeper it burrows. Guilt is like rust. It doesn't destroy immediately. It corrodes quietly, unseen, until one day everything collapses. Meanwhile, you, the one they hurt, are beginning to heal. You're learning that your pain, faced with courage, transforms into power, that while their guilt imprisons them, your honesty liberates you, because peace and guilt can't coexist. One destroys the other, and the difference between you and them is simple. You faced your pain and became free. They ran from theirs and became prisoners of it. That's the true justice of life. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to punish. It just mirrors. And when guilt rises, it doesn't stop until the soul learns humility or collapses under the weight of its own denial. At first, it looks like they're winning. They move on quickly. They seem untouchable. They laugh louder, post brighter, and pretend that the damage they caused doesn't exist. But underneath that facade, something begins to crumble slowly, quietly, irreversibly. That's the curse of false power. It devours itself from within. You see, real power is rooted in self-discipline, humility, and truth. False power, on the other hand, is built on manipulation, pride, and fear. It needs control to survive. It needs victims to feel strong. And once it loses that control, it collapses under the weight of its own illusion. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius warned, "He who does wrong to himself." When someone uses deceit or cruelty as tools for control, they think they're bending reality. But what they're actually doing is tearing holes in their own integrity, and the soul cannot remain whole when it's divided by lies. Their downfall doesn't come in explosions or dramatic punishment. It comes through erosion, slowly. Their relationships decay. Their confidence turns brittle. Their peace disappears. Every manipulation, every betrayal, every cruel act adds another crack to the foundation of their life, until the entire structure begins to shake. They wake up one day and realize they can't trust anyone, not because the world is cruel, but because they are. They start attracting the same energy they once projected. The liar gets lied to. The betrayer gets betrayed. The manipulator gets manipulated. It's not coincidence. It's equilibrium. Life doesn't allow falsehood to stand forever. It always rebalances itself. And the rebalancing is brutal. The same arrogance that made them believe they were untouchable now isolates them. The same charm that once deceived others now fails to convince. People start to see through the mask. The attention fades. The admiration turns to avoidance. The spotlight that once made them feel powerful now burns with exposure. That's when panic sets in. They realize they have built everything: their relationships, their identity, their sense of worth on something hollow. And hollow things don't last. They collapse inward. Meanwhile, your silence becomes louder than their performance. The peace they once mocked now looks like the freedom they crave. The stability they tried to destroy in you becomes the very thing missing in their life. And that realization haunts them because it proves what they always feared, that they were never strong, only loud. False power is like a flame that burns fast but consumes itself in the process. It gives the illusion of control while secretly feeding chaos. The manipulator believes they are shaping others, but in truth, they're only shaping their own destruction. And when that destruction finally arrives, it's not punishment, it's exposure. Exposure of who they really are when the lies fade. Exposure of the emptiness behind their arrogance. Exposure of the weakness they tried to hide through control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is measured by the things he pursues." They pursued dominance. So that's what they became, dominated by their own ego. You pursued peace. And that's what you became, a vessel of strength. Not because you fought them, but because you didn't need to. So, as they crumble under the weight of their false power, you rise through the quiet resilience of truth. Their collapse isn't your revenge, it's the universe restoring order. Because everything built on deceit eventually falls. And everything rooted in integrity eventually stands. There's a reason why Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Every action we take sends ripples through the invisible fabric of reality, and those ripples always return. You can't harm others without wounding yourself. Just as you can't act with integrity without being fortified by it. That's the law of balance, the quiet architecture of justice that governs everything. When they hurt you, they thought they were free. They believed their cruelty would disappear into silence, that there would be no consequence as long as no one could see what they did. But life isn't blind. It's observant. It records through energy, memory, and conscience. They planted a seed, not of victory, but of decay. And while you were healing, that seed began to grow within them. Karma is not mystical revenge. It's psychological gravity. When you betray truth, your life starts to lose coherence. When you manipulate others, you begin to live in constant suspicion. When you lie, you can no longer trust. Every deception fractures the mind. Every act of cruelty divides the soul. And over time, that inner split becomes unbearable. You might not see it from the outside. Their lives may still look glamorous, their smiles convincing, but beneath that surface lies unrest, anxiety that won't quiet down, sleep that feels heavy, conversations that feel empty. Because balance doesn't always punish through events. It punishes through awareness. It turns peace into guilt, laughter into noise, and comfort into illusion. The Stoics never spoke of karma as superstition. They spoke of it as natural order. Seneca said, "All cruelty springs from weakness, and weakness, by its nature, collapses. To violate justice, even secretly, is to make war with the very order that sustains your existence. Life has no interest in protecting those who destroy what is sacred trust. Honesty, compassion, it lets them fall by their own hand. But here's the paradox. The same law that punishes them also strengthens you. While they suffer the consequences of deceit, you reap the quiet rewards of endurance. Pain didn't destroy you, it refined you. Betrayal didn't end your story, it purified your standards. Your suffering transformed into insight, and that insight became wisdom, a kind of emotional intelligence that can't be faked or taught. Now you see clearly. You've learned to read intentions instead of words. You've learned that silence exposes more than arguments ever could. You've learned that peace is not the absence of pain, but the mastery of it. That's balance in motion. While they lose peace for inflicting pain, you gain clarity for surviving it. While they fall into guilt, you rise into growth. While they chase validation, you find fulfillment. Life always recalibrates. It gives people what they earn, not what they want. The dishonest eventually drown in their own deceit. The arrogant eventually bow to their own pride. The cruel eventually choke on their own bitterness. That's not superstition, that's cause and effect. And so, the universe continues its silent work. It never rushes. It never forgets. It simply balances, slowly, precisely, inevitably. One day, they'll wake up and realize that the very things they took for granted, trust, loyalty, peace, are gone. They'll feel a hollowness they can't explain. They'll chase distraction after distraction, but nothing will fill the void, because that void is the echo of every soul they've wounded. Meanwhile, you'll walk in silence, lighter, freer, untouched by the chaos that once tried to consume you. You'll understand that balance is not about watching others fall, but about becoming so whole that their downfall no longer concerns you. That's what true karmic justice looks like, not vengeance, but restoration, not punishment, but correction. It's the universe reminding every soul that what you give always returns multiplied, refined, and exact. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The wrongdoer wrongs himself. The unjust man is unjust to himself. He makes himself evil." That is the essence of karma. And that is why you don't need revenge, because life already works with precision. There's a punishment that doesn't come from the outside. It doesn't announce itself through loss or scandal. It doesn't make noise. It arrives in silence through guilt. At first, they think they've escaped it. They distract themselves with noise, with people, with success that looks impressive but feels hollow. They laugh louder than ever, but the laughter doesn't echo right anymore. They post pictures, tell stories, and perform happiness. But the performance begins to drain them because guilt is patient. It waits for quiet moments. It waits for nights when the noise fades, when the mask slips, when the lights go out and the mind begins to replay everything. That's when it begins. The slow corrosion of peace, the whisper they can't silence. You know what you did. The Stoics believed that a guilty conscience is the most inescapable form of justice. Senetsarot. He who does evil suffers more than he who suffers it, because the human soul, no matter how corrupted, cannot escape its own awareness. You can deceive others, but never yourself. Eventually, the inner world turns against the one who betrayed it. They start to feel it physically, the tension that won't go away, the exhaustion that sleep can't fix. They carry invisible weight, and every act of pretense becomes harder. The mind tries to rationalize. They deserved it. I had no choice. But deep down, conscience doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about excuses. It simply holds the truth. And the more they resist it, the heavier it gets. You can fake happiness. You can fake confidence. But you can't fake peace. Peace requires alignment between what you do, what you believe, and who you are. Once that alignment breaks, the soul begins to fracture. That's the hidden consequence of cruelty, spiritual disintegration. The one who betrayed love becomes incapable of receiving it. The one who destroyed trust loses the ability to trust anyone. The one who mocked loyalty becomes haunted by abandonment, because life doesn't just punish through events, it mirrors your actions through your own experience. They'll never tell you this. Of course, they'll act unaffected. They'll mock your healing to distract from their own pain. But every night, when silence grows louder than their thoughts, they face what you no longer need to. Guilt isn't loud, it's consistent. It erodes slowly, like rust beneath paint. One day, everything looks fine. The next, everything collapses. And when it does, they'll realize that they never truly hurt you. They hurt themselves through you. Their betrayal was a wound they inflicted inwardly, a corruption of their own soul disguised as power. Meanwhile, you'll begin to feel something they can't: peace. You faced pain and turned it into wisdom. You didn't run from truth. You sat with it, learned from it, and rebuilt your strength. That's why you're free now, because you chose healing over denial, evolution over ego. And that's the difference between them and you. They live in the echo of their actions. You live in the clarity of your growth. Their punishment is not external. It's the restless conscience that never sleeps. It's the silence that keeps reminding them what they've become. They thought hurting you would make them powerful. But guilt doesn't serve power. It dismantles it. So when you wonder if they ever feel remorse, they do. Not in words, but in the weight they carry. The world may not see it, but their soul does. And that's justice enough, because in the end, they live in guilt. And you live in peace. False power always begins with arrogance and ends with exposure. It's loud at first. It dominates, manipulates, and deceives. But arrogance is a trap disguised as confidence. It convinces people that they can control outcomes, rewrite truth, and bend others to their will. Yet in doing so, they declare war on reality itself, and reality always wins. The people who hurt you once believed they were untouchable. They fed on control, mistaking submission for respect. They mistook your patience for weakness, your silence for fear, your kindness for ignorance. They couldn't see that real strength never performs. It endures. It doesn't roar. It remained calm. It doesn't seek dominance. It seeks mastery, mastery of self. And that's where their downfall begins. Because while they were busy trying to win through manipulation, you were winning through transformation. Every act of cruelty they committed was an attempt to feel powerful. But false power is never stable. It's built on fear. Fear of being ordinary. Fear of being exposed. Fear of facing themselves. That's why they had to control others, because they couldn't control their own chaos. The Stoics called this the disease of the soul, the inability to govern one's own mind while trying to govern others. Real power is the opposite. It's quiet, disciplined, and detached. It doesn't need to harm anyone to prove itself. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." You didn't need to fight them on their level because you were rising above their frequency. Every time you refused to react, you reminded the universe who you were and who they weren't. They built their illusion on domination, but domination without integrity always self-destructs. The liar eventually believes their own lies. The manipulator becomes trapped in the web they spun. The egoist becomes enslaved by their own image. It's poetic. The very tactics they use to feel powerful become the reason for their collapse. Meanwhile, you've been evolving in silence. You've learned that strength isn't measured by control, but by composure. It's not about bending others. It's about mastering your emotions when others try to bend you. That's the Stoic truth. Control yourself. And no one can control you. That's why, now, your peace is your power. It unsettles them more than your anger ever could. Because they realize something terrifying, their influence only worked when you reacted. The moment you stopped feeding their chaos, their empire of manipulation began to starve. Real strength doesn't chase victory. It embodies it. It doesn't need applause or validation because its roots are internal. You've learned to find peace in solitude, to grow from pain instead of being defined by it. You've replaced bitterness with awareness and revenge with self-respect. That's evolution, and they can't compete with that. Now, every time they see you, they feel the reflection of their own failure. Your composure mirrors their collapse. Your stability highlights their inner chaos. Your calm success whispers the truth. They tried to bury you, were never the weak one. Their downfall was inevitable because it wasn't caused by you, it was caused by themselves. And your rise was inevitable because it wasn't driven by spite, it was driven by purpose. The balance has flipped. They're haunted by guilt. You're guided by peace. They're losing control. You're mastering it. That's the great reversal of power, when the victim becomes the victor without ever becoming the villain. So never doubt the quiet path you chose. Stoicism teaches that true strength is silent, endurance guided by clarity. You didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves, trying to destroy you. You simply survived, healed, and rose. And in the end, that's what breaks them most. Not your anger, not your revenge, but your evolution. There's a kind of justice that doesn't wear a crown or carry a sword. It moves in silence, in timing, in cause and effect. The Stoics called it logos, the rational structure of the universe, the hidden order behind all things. Modern minds call it karma, consequence, or moral law. Whatever name you give it, its essence is the same. Life balances everything. When they hurt you, it seemed unfair. It felt like the world rewarded cruelty and mocked sincerity. You looked at their smiles, their success, their indifference, and wondered, do people really get away with this? But what you couldn't see was that justice was already unfolding, not in the world's noise, but in the unseen realms of conscience, relationships, and time. Life doesn't forget. It simply waits. For a while, they may appear to flourish. That's the deceptive calm before collapse, because the universe gives everyone enough rope to reveal who they truly are. The person who betrays love will attract betrayal. The one who destroys trust will live in suspicion. The one who mocks loyalty will be surrounded by deceit. That's not punishment. That's reflection. Life doesn't need to avenge it. Mirrors. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The wrongdoer does wrong to himself. The unjust man is unjust to himself." The moment they chose to harm someone who meant them no harm, they declared war on their own peace. Every time they lied, they weakened their credibility. Every act of manipulation hollowed their spirit. And every cruel word became an echo that would one day return louder, sharper, and unavoidable. You see, justice doesn't always arrive in ways the human ego expects. It's not about seeing them lose their job or watching them suffer publicly. It's subtler and more poetic. Justice works through the slow disintegration of falsehood, through the quiet erosion of inner peace, through the painful recognition that they have become everything they once despised. That's how balance works. It doesn't need to punish externally, it corrects internally. The liar can't trust anyone. The manipulator lives in paranoia. The unfaithful can't feel love. The cruel never know peace. It's not karma against them, it's life returning them to themselves. And in contrast, look at you. You who chose restraint over rage. You who cried in silence instead of retaliating in anger. You who let go when your heart wanted revenge. The same balance that corrects them is now rewarding you, not immediately, not dramatically, but profoundly. Every small act of discipline, forgiveness, or dignity has been compounding like quiet interest in the universe's moral economy. You are not the same person who was broken. Pain sharpened your discernment. Loss deepened your gratitude. Betrayal taught you emotional intelligence, the kind that sees clearly without growing bitter. You've learned that justice isn't about watching someone fall. It's about rising so high that their chaos can't reach you anymore. The Stoics believed that virtue is its own reward. Seneca said, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." And you've done exactly that. You conquered the urge to fight dirty. You resisted the temptation to prove your worth. You reclaimed your peace without stealing anyone else's. That's divine justice in motion, not through destruction, but through transformation. Because here's the truth, when you heal, you fulfill karma. You stop the chain reaction of pain. You refuse to pass on the poison that was given to you. And that refusal, that conscious choice to stay kind, calm, and self-aware is what restores harmony to the moral order. Meanwhile, those who broke you are now being broken by the same forces they unleashed, not by your hand, but by the laws that govern reality itself. They are learning, painfully, what they taught you unwillingly, that nothing done in arrogance goes unpaid. One day, perhaps long after you've moved on, they'll feel the full gravity of their actions. It won't be a dramatic collapse. It'll be quiet, private, and mercilessly clear. A moment when they look at their life and realize that every bridge they burned was one they now need to cross. That every person they hurt was a mirror of the peace they lost. And that's when they'll understand you were never the one punished. You were purified. Life didn't take sides, it restored balance. Because the universe doesn't serve revenge. It serves truth. And truth, no matter how long it hides, always comes home. There comes a moment when the pain no longer defines you, it refines you. When the memories no longer haunt you, they educate you. When the betrayal no longer bleeds, it blesses. That's the moment you rise. Not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to become: calm, unshakable, and untouchable. This is the hidden purpose behind every heartbreak, every injustice, every storm transformation. The people who hurt you thought they broke you, but they were actually helping you shed everything weak, naive, and unguarded within you. They didn't destroy you. They exposed what was unready for greatness. Now, you've stepped into something rare, the stillness of power. You've learned that revenge wastes energy. But discipline multiplies it. That silence isn't submission. It's control. That peace isn't weakness. It's strategy. The same heart that once shattered is now tempered steel, flexible, but indestructible. This is the Stoic rebirth: to suffer without bitterness, to grow without vengeance, and to walk through fire without losing your humanity. You no longer react to chaos, you observe it. You no longer need closure, you create it within. You no longer chase validation, you carry your own worth. Every insult, every loss, every betrayal became a teacher in disguise, showing you the secret that most people never learn. Emotional intelligence is the ultimate form of power. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You've realized that you've become a master of inner balance. Your emotions no longer control you, they serve you. Your past no longer enslaves you, it instructs you. And now, while they live in regret, you live in purpose. While they struggle to find meaning, you move with clarity. While they pay for their cruelty and guilt and emptiness, you are rewarded with self-respect and peace, the true currency of life. Because what they lost, you gained. They lost integrity. You found authenticity. They lost trust. You discovered boundaries. They lost peace. You built inner stillness that nothing external can shake. Their downfall became your awakening. That's the paradox of life's justice. The same pain that humbled you became the foundation that elevated you. The same silence that once felt lonely has now become your sanctuary. The same people who underestimated you now serve as reminders of how far you've risen. You're not chasing anyone anymore. You're not explaining, not proving, not reacting. You've entered a different league, the realm of quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need applause because truth doesn't need to perform. This is the high-performance mindset. The Stoics lived by restraint over reaction, patience over pride, presence over performance. You've mastered it. You've turned pain into perspective, wounds into wisdom, and silence into strength. You are no longer the person they tried to destroy. You are the lesson life gave them and the proof that virtue always outlasts manipulation. So when they see you now calm, confident, grounded, they'll feel that silent chill of realization they didn't win. They only awakened something they could never break. You've become the embodiment of balance, unshaken by praise, unaffected by hatred, free from control. Because true power doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from mastering yourself. And that's your final victory. Not revenge, not vindication, but transcendence. You have risen from pain into purpose, from chaos into clarity, from weakness into wisdom. And as you walk forward in silence, in strength, in absolute peace, remember this: you didn't just survive what they did to you, you evolved beyond it. You are no longer defined by what broke you. You are defined by what could not. That is the rise of the unbreakable self. And that is the justice life always intended. When they thought they broke you, they didn't realize they built you. When they tried to silence you, they didn't realize they strengthened your voice. When they walked away, thinking they'd won, they didn't realize they awakened something in you that can never be destroyed. That's the power of the Stoic mind. It turns pain into progress. It turns betrayal into wisdom. It turns loss into liberation. You didn't just survive, you evolved. You learned that justice doesn't need noise, that peace doesn't need permission, and that power doesn't need to be proven. You became the storm they never saw coming, not out of anger, but out of awareness. And now, you stand in a place few ever reach, calm, grounded, and unstoppable. That's your real victory, not seeing them fall, but knowing that nothing they did could stop your rise. Because when you control your emotions, you control your fate. When you walk in silence, your peace becomes your weapon. And when you choose growth over revenge, you step into the kind of strength that shakes the world. So remember this: you are the balance that life restores. You are the proof that pain refines the wise and destroys the foolish. And you are the living reminder that no one wins by hurting someone who walks with truth. If this message spoke to your soul, don't just listen, embody it. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and join the Think Stoic 101 family, where emotional intelligence meets spiritual discipline and quiet confidence becomes your superpower. Because at the end of the day, your best revenge is peace. Your greatest weapon is self-control. And your ultimate victory is becoming untouchable.